I don't like to try to micromanage is because then you take that autonomy away from that person. I don't know everything and I don't need to know everything because I have people in place that do know that. So it's kind of like where you can step back a little bit and not feel that you have to be having your hands into everything. And I think it allows that staff or that crew or clinic or whatever it is to be operate independently and have a little autonomy to where they don't feel like the boss is hounding over them, because I don't like that.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Healthcare Distilled, a practice growth podcast. Today, my guest is Kendrick McCarty, the founder of Forever Young Health Clinic and Inception Telehealth and Wellness. Welcome, Kendrick. Why don't you say a few words about yourself?
I appreciate you having me on. Kendrick McCarty, nurse practitioner. I live here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Been practicing medicine for about 17 years now. So I got quite a bit of experience and I'm still learning. So that's kind of where actually me and your relationship came together.
That's right. So yeah, my name is Airto Zamorano. I'm the co-founder of Numana Medical and Numana Digital. We work with practice owners like Kendrick to help them grow and manage their practices. Before launching my companies in 2017, I was a CEO of a multi-specialty medical practice. So today, Kendrick and I have decided to share our experience with others. We'll talk about how he launched his practice and also launched a telehealth wellness practice, and how he's continued to grow both of these businesses and how he plans to continue growing from there. So let's jump into it. If we can start at the beginning, tell me about your career, how you even got started, school, everything, whatever got you to where you are today.
Yeah. No, for sure. I started many years back. Back in I don't know, I graduated high school in 2002 here on the Gulf Coast. Went to University of Southern Mississippi, studied medicine. I went through pre-med, did some nursing, and ultimately landed as an advanced nurse practitioner. And the cool thing was it opens the opportunity to learn a different specialties, whichever one that you feel like you are most driven towards. I did critical care and pulmonology, studying lungs for quite a few years. I ventured over into orthopedics, loved it. I love the body and men and orthopedics and joints and muscles. So it was something I really jived with, and ultimately it kind of led me over to opening up my health clinic.
All right. And so what made you decide that you wanted to launch your own clinic? What was the thing that went through your mind where you decided you're going to be your own person here?
Man, for many years, I think everybody's goal is they want to work for themselves. I don't think anybody wants a boss. They want to be the boss. But, in the medical field, it's a little difficult. I worked at one of the major private institutions here. I did great. I loved it. I was able to learn a bunch, but I felt like there was a huge void, and a lot of it is in preventative medicine. Unfortunately, I think in the medical field right now, a lot of it is not very proactive. It's more reactive. So I felt like there was a huge gap in helping people not only live a better and healthier life, but perform better. Quality of life, I think, is huge. And I think that it's starting to become more mainstream. I wanted to be on the early side of that, and it's something I really love doing. And it kind of prompted me to open a health clinic and really try to help as many people as I can.
That's great. And what difficulties did you encounter getting started?
The plunge. I think the plunge is always the hardest thing to decide on. So, I was a family man. I had a house, I had bills, I had a son. I think we all have family that we got to consider when you talk about making an occupation change, and especially when you make a decision on maybe venturing into entrepreneurship and launching your own business, which is going to be pretty risky. And I think that's one thing that scares people away from taking that leap. And I think that's kind of what ultimately drove me is the fact that I didn't really know what was going to happen. I just ultimately felt that it was something that I wanted to do. The opportunity arose where I was able to balance a little bit on my schedule. I was working in orthopedic surgery. We started getting to a point where we were having days off during the week. I don't know if it was a situational thing, if it was just supposed to happen that way, but I took that as my opportunity to start looking into making my own decisions on being a business owner. Ultimately, it led to a point where I said, I think this is where I want to be. I don't want to work for another institution. I want my own clinic. And ultimately, that's what I did. Made a decision, jumped, didn't look back, and I still wouldn't look back. Now, it wasn't easy, but I definitely would. I would not look back. I mean, it took a lot of trials, a lot of tribulations, a lot of financial strain, a lot of stress. But ultimately, I think that's what makes the reward that much better.
I think you're spot on. You mentioned having to make that change in your mindset where, and for me, I can say I was comfortable. I had a really nice job and then I had another nicer job and I was making more money and there's some stability to that. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, I'm going to go do this for myself. And you have to be willing to shatter that sense of stability to make that plunge. And I know that in my end of business, which is a different model, but probably not that different in terms of, am I really going to do this? And, thankfully my wife and I started
Yeah,
this together. We were on the same page, and then her father's a successful entrepreneur. So he gave us a
awesome.
lot of encouragement. Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, nope, do it. Cause we were like, should we? He's like 100%, you should do it. I think it's
I
good
think if
advice
you
from you.
ask, yeah, I think you ask any entrepreneur, they're gonna, I think, probably tell you the same things. It's not gonna be easy, but would anybody do it differently? I don't think so. I think anyone that's gonna ask me the same question, I'm gonna say 100% do it. It's not going to be easy, but that's what makes it that much more rewarding. And again, I think it's a cool thing. And I don't think it's business related. I don't think it's specialty related. Like you said, we may be in two different businesses per se, but being an entrepreneur, I think it still has the same principles. And regardless of what specialty it is, it comes with the same risks and it's going to have the same benefit in the long run.
Well, that's why I like doing this podcast. I think it does come with those risks and people don't understand them. And I think sometimes you just want to know what's normal, right? Like we're in a time period now where there's an election coming up and there's fears of recession and so forth. And the fact that we're all going through that at the same time, and it's it we'll have to navigate things together and learn from each other, and
Yeah.
I think that helps a lot of people. So it's why I think it's important to share these stories and give that perspective.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like you got a group of people that have already been through the same thing, so they can relate. Whether it's yeah, I don't think that's any industry. I mean, a football team, sports. It's whatever you have a group that can support you and have been through the same things and understand and can relate. It's just a good support system.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you learn these crazy things you're going to have to do that feels super unnatural. You realize, wait, there's an end game here, and there's a really good reward if I do it right. So
Of course.
that's that's often where we come in, is to help people with that knowledge, those pieces, because they're typically very good at something that they do, they're skilled at, and these are the things you don't learn. Right? We talk about that often. These things that no one teaches you when you're in school, and you're just kind of thrown in the deep end. So yeah,
Yeah, it's sink or swim. I mean, sometimes it's trial and tribulations. I mean, you can call it any phrase, trial by fire. I mean, you throw the sheep to the wolves. I mean, whatever you say, it is. It's a lot of unknowns, and like you said, you're not taught this, and there's not a playbook. So a lot of it is you kind of just got to figure out and make some wrong decisions and figure out how to do it right from there. And I've made some, I don't say poor decisions. I just didn't know. I wasn't educated in the certain areas at that time. So I've learned a lot. And of course, your business is actually the one that helped me a ton, get on course and help me with a lot of systems and efficiency and marketing and that stuff like that. But that was something that I had to learn as I progressively went on from that initial launch date. So I'm still learning.
absolutely. Some of the best business owners I've met, even really good marketers, they're they are out there just putting their hands on things every day, and they're not hesitating, and they're just doing it day in, day out. And so they
Mhm.
learn what they need to know about accounting. They learn what they need to know about marketing. I think the most important skill you learn is, and you're good at this too, I've noticed since we've met, is finding good people and empowering them to help you. You're really good at that.
That's huge. That's huge. And that was another dynamic that you have to understand when you open up a business. Well, now other people you are responsible for. I mean, when you start getting to a point where you're hiring other people and now they rely upon you to be successful, because they got to pay bills. I mean, they have their own family. So it's a whole nother dynamic that you don't even think about when you think about being a business owner. Like you said, it just sounds so cool. It's like, I want to be a business owner. I want to be my own boss. I want to do this. But it's like, man, there's a lot of things that you don't even realize that come along with that. But again, I think I've done well, and I agree with you. I found people that work for me and they do great, and I pay them well, and I respect them, and they do the same. They just work hard for me because
All right. So we're punching in here, a little technical difficulty with headphones, but he's back. So I was asking, what was your first year like? Tell me now, you've taken the plunge, made the decision, now you're getting going. Like, let's talk about
Man,
that first time in business.
the first year was difficult. Of course, it tests you, it makes you want to quit. It makes you want to rethink what the hell was I thinking, when I
Yeah.
decided to take that plunge. But
Yeah.
because when I first started, I didn't jump into my clinic 100%, meaning not that I wasn't dedicated, it was I still was working in my primary job trying to start my clinic and get it rolling before I ultimately made that first decision. So it was a lot of late nights. It was a lot of working on the weekends. It was difficult to get that first year under my belt and realize that I was onto something, learned how to jump through the hoops, learned what I needed to do, got some good staff that was helpful and dedicated. And man, once that first year beat me down, and I was able to recover and find some light, and basically know that that was what I needed to do. And about 6 months into that first year, I finally left my primary job and to realize that I did kind of inch in a little bit because I was scared. I think everybody has that caution to say, "Hey, are you doing the right thing?" And I realized that unless you jump in 100%, you're not going to be able to thrive. And I realized that about 5 to 6 months in, and one day it just hit me, and I literally, one day I walked in and said, "You know what? I give you guys my notice. It's been 15 years I worked for this hospital here." And that was it, man. That was the sink or swim kind of jump. And it was tough. It was the best decision I think I've ever made.
Well, let's talk about, getting your first patient, and like, what did you do to start getting revenue moving?
That was a little easier than what I thought. The good thing was because I was already incorporated into the medical field here. I worked in the area for 15 plus years. I already had a pretty good footprint. So whenever people started hearing that I was opening up a health clinic that was really focused on hormone optimization and performance and quality of life and all these things that I talk about that's really missed in the standard medical workup, I think I had a lot of people really jump over pretty quick. The hard part was to keep that. The hard part was sustaining that influx of people. It's like anything that brand new that opens, the burger joint down the road always kicks butt for the first month, but after everyone had your burger, think people just kind of fizzle out. So it was almost trying to keep that snowball effect going. And the first couple patients were easy to jump in. They were people that supported me. They were people I already knew. They were performance guys. I like to work out. I like to try to project an image, even in my patient load, about diet modification and exercise and how important it is to be healthy and hormones and all that. So people that already knew me from that industry really jumped on board and they supported me, and it was great. The hard part was once I got my inner circle committed, how was I going to get it spread from there?
Right.
And the best thing was I did very well. I'm good at what I do, and it spread like wildfire. I mean, I got lucky just because I was having so many people have good results that they would tell four people, those four people would come in, they'd tell four people, and it really kind of got the ball rolling. But I realized that was only going to get me so far. And eventually
Yeah.
I hit a
Yeah.
point where I said, "Oh wow, now I'm a real business. I mean, I have to really
Yeah.
start thinking about a
Yeah.
business. I'm not just a medical guy." So that's where I really had to step back and find out how to make this thing continue to prosper. And that was one of the reasons, of course, that I got linked up with you guys. I mean, that was one of the big steps in me being able to jump in, and really take my business to the next level.
Yeah, look, my business is no different, right? First thing you do is you come out and you look at the people you know and the relationships you have, and it's a great jump start.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you got a good reputation, people like you, and they'll help you. And I was lucky to have that, and I still have a nice network, but it only gets you so far. And I think that's
Exactly.
an important thing that we try to teach is that you need an omni-channel approach. We hear a lot of clinics will say, I live off referrals, and some do very well off that one thing. And some specialties are probably a little better situated for that. But the real problem is those referral sources, that network is fragile, right? So we've seen doctors retire, hospital systems buy up referral sources, all these things and you have no control.
None.
So we've had it more than a few times where someone's come to us like, I need immediate help. I was doing great for 10 years and now I'm not. Can you please help me? So I think you're very smart to realize in forecasting that this will get you so far. And I now need to be more viable as a brand and bring people in who don't know me.
Yeah.
And
I think that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a hard thing.
That was the hardest thing. Yeah, that was the hardest thing to kind of recognize is, wow, I'm starting to run out of my primary resource was people that I knew. And once you realize
Yeah.
that, it kind of gets a little scary. It's like, all right, now what?
Yeah.
Now I got to, try to figure out what the next step is. How do I take this from, I'm just barely treading water just to make sure that I'm continuing to, not drown, but, really try to be successful and take a business from skimming by to successful and profitable and being able to scale it.
Tell me about, like, what did you start to do? Now you've tapped out your market, your network, your own inner circle. What do you do? What are the first marketing activities you start to do for yourself?
Throw money in every direction I could think of. I mean, it was bad
Yeah.
because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never owned a business. I mean, it's not like unless you grow up and someone's right there kind of coaching you through it. I had to hit the net and try to figure out what the next step was. I got lucky to one of the when I was in orthopedics, we did an ACL reconstruction on a lady that happened to be in advertising locally. And I reached out to her and I said, "Look, what do I need to do? What do people do? Give me some insight, give me some help. Let me know what you can do to try to help my services." I learned a lot about geofencing and being able to try to target people, things that I never knew even existed. I didn't even realize you could tap into someone's phone and where they are and you can ping off all these things. I mean, I never knew how you figured that if I was looking for a particular pair of shoes, how it kept coming up on my phone all the time. But
Yeah.
it's very savvy on what they can do as far as advertising and being able to really focus on a certain group of people or a facility or a particular type of store. So really, I learned. I wasted a lot of money, and I think a lot of people end up wasting money in advertising because it's not easy to do. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to get people to look at you, understand what you're doing, trust you, and make money out of spending money. I think that's another thing that a lot of businesses fail at is they don't advertise because it's expensive. And I think eventually you have to get to a point where you have to spend more money to make money. And I think everyone's heard that, but you don't really know it until you get in a position where you're not getting the influx of people that you need to sustain or to continue to thrive. So that was one thing I did. I just started reaching my hands out and trying to find the best avenue of getting the word out outside of just word of mouth, which is great. That's the best way because it's a compliment. Obviously I've done well. Someone enjoyed my services. They've noticed and got good results and they've told whoever else. But again, outside of that, you have to start getting a little bit more I don't know, diverse in the way that you can really get your marketing out there.
Absolutely. You and I talked about this expectation that some people go into business with that, well, I'll conserve my way through this, or I'll not spend because I don't have money. And it doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work. And to simplify it, to try to help, because we know spend money to make money, but let's expand that a little more. I need to be seen. I need people to know that I exist and that I'm a good option, right? And that's not an easy thing to do. So I'm a new business. I come in, I'm a new practice, and I'm here. I should my lights are on. I'm ready for patients to come see me. And they have no way to find you other than a few channels. It might be social media. It might be, primarily we're looking at Google search now, referrals and so forth. So Google being what it is, people want to be seen on there, have to realize that there's practices that have been around 20 years or 10 years, and they've spent all the money and done all the right things. Google's intention is definitely not to show you as a new business,
Of course.
until you've earned a place in the market and shown viability. And then in order to say, okay, well, how do I take it from this person, or how do I join the fray? There's a buy-in. You have to think of it. I have to spend something in the range of what they are or what they did if I have any intention of being in that group. And I think people miss that a lot of times, where they think, well, I only have this much money right here. It's like, well, A, you come out with funding that you created for yourself, or B, you have to find funding. It may be an investor, it might be a business loan. And that's probably more common than I think some people who want to start their own business think it is. And I know for my business, we had to have money that we saved up and were able to apply. And the only time I could cut any corner on that is if I had the time and experience and the skill to do that thing that I would otherwise have to invest in. And you've talked about that with me. So I thought it was an interesting point that we should elaborate upon for our listeners here.
It is. It is. There's not a lot of different means of being able to fund or finance a new business, and either one or two ways. Either you have to borrow it, or you have it either saved, or somebody's going to be supporting you from an investment standpoint. So now you've had to give up some of your business just to allow the funding to take place,
Right.
because ultimately you have to have money. You can't expand without money. I mean, everyone knows that you have to have money. But again, you don't realize how crucial it is until you get to that point of being able to get your name out there. And it's a crazy thing. And I didn't realize how tough it was, how Google even worked, until I met this guy named Airto. And SEO, I mean, I didn't know that. The SEO, I'm thinking, I don't know what organization that is, but I found out that, through the proper resources and getting linked up with the right people, that I was able to find those other avenues. How Google really is able to, get you to those points in the keyword search to get you up there and be in the same running with some of those bigger companies. But it all falls back on how much money are you willing to spend. I think a lot of people are scared, or don't have it, and it is a scary thing. I mean, it's not something that you can ever look past. It's not like, hey, don't spend money and then you just hope for people to trickle in. I mean, there was right next to my clinic, there was a business that opened up. I thought it was a great idea, very natural. It was a juice bar, and we don't have a lot of that here, and I think from a health perspective, I think it was great. But he didn't advertise. You couldn't even tell he was open. I mean, and that's something that in that industry, it almost you got to have those big wavy things out there just to draw someone's
Right.
attention, at least to say, hey, I'm open. At least for me, if you're in a niche, you might be able to find somebody that's looking for your services. But
Yeah.
food industry's tough. But again, I think that because of lack of advertising and marketing, they crumped, and I think that happens a lot because people are scared to spend money, or they don't have it. And that's a hard thing from an entrepreneurial standpoint, where I had to make some sacrifices, and I had to save, and I had to sell, things that were able to fund me early on, that where I was fortunate enough to not have to take investors. But again, that's not everybody's avenue. Whatever it is, either you got to save, you got to sell, or you got to borrow, but you have to have money. If you don't have liquid cash, there's no way that you're going to be able to continue to, expand.
And healthcare is interesting, and I'd like to know your experience before us even, but I have my CV being that I was the CEO of a group. I still get a lot of these ads that you probably get, and I'm surprised at the volume. I mean, it seems to have increased. I know it's like the current day multi-level marketing from like 20 years ago, where I think everyone took a course and now they're an expert, and it's a race to the bottom. And that's that's dangerous. I went through that. I mean, I'm only in this position because I went through multiple agencies and failed
Yeah.
and trusted somebody and spent the money, and it wasn't working. And every time I thought I got smart and figured it out, it didn't work. And eventually
Yep.
we brought it in house. That's not to say there wasn't a company out there that could have helped, but we just didn't find them. And I found it was way easier to find these people that don't have the experience, that aren't going to get that result, and they're going to tell you the things that you want to hear. And what I learned was happening, it was like, oh, we're choosing website and our image for our brand and things based on what we saw this guy down the street do, or a colleague of somebody's.
Right. Yeah.
But nobody tested it. Nobody had actually said, like, wait, why are we doing that? Does it actually work? Is it more effective? And that is when I realized I needed to know more about my marketing, the same way that I knew anything about clinical side, about the billing. I needed to understand that as a department in my business and how to manage those individuals. And I needed to know what I needed to know. So, and that's where most people, and tell me about if you went through that, but that was my experience and why I even jumped into what I do now. But what about you?
Well, no, you nailed it even during that talk. Was you continued to modify and test until you found what was effective. I mean, when you said you had to bring it in-house, I mean, whatever you had to do to learn, whether it been from mistakes or something that was prosperous in that area, that's how you have to continue to accommodate changing. And even though I've been open for a couple years now and I've got a good foundation,
Yeah.
I'm always looking to become more efficient or change my system, or what can we do. It's never just kind of like wash your hands and walk away. It's rolling. I think it's something that you have to continue to work on and always try to be better and better. So even early on, like you said, you may have made some bad choices, or someone talked you into doing something that may or may have not been the right way. You took that knowledge and you used it. You used that knowledge, you used that
Yeah.
experience, even though it was a bad experience, you used it to further your business. So I think that not all experiences, whether they be good or bad, or something that you got to use as
Yeah.
a negative approach. I mean, it can be fuel. And that's kind of how you have to use it. The more experience you have in any situation, the better off you're going to be to help modify your current protocol.
Well, and I know a theme in our discussions also, you talked about not being afraid to fail. And I've always said, you don't fail till you give up, because that perseverance is essential. I don't know anybody that's
Yeah.
gone through any kind of business ownership where they haven't run into some snags, some bigger than others. But the fact is, you get up and you're like, yeah, I might feel sorry for myself for a little bit, but I got to brush that off and get back on the horse, or you're done.
And keep rolling. And that's the difference between someone that's born, with the last name of Hilton or Walton or whoever you are. I mean, you don't have $1 billion to work. If you're trying to build
Yeah,
a business, you have to be versatile. You have to be able to, take a knockdown and get back up, and like you said, brush it off, reevaluate, be flexible, all these things. I mean, because if you just ultimately give up, then you're just going to be in the
that
same group as everybody else that you should have never even jumped. If you weren't going to be in it for 100% and know that there was no such thing as failure, then you should have just probably just stayed in your comfort zone, that safety net, however you want to say it. People get complacent, and even if you get paid well, I think that's what puts people in a position of not wanting to move forward. And even though, like you said, you made good money, I was making good money, but there was something missing. The money was not it wasn't the root cause. It was like, okay, there's something better here, there's something missing, there's something that could be better and be applicable to other people. And I think that's another driving force outside of just financial. I think that everyone wants to, be successful and make money and retire one day. But I think if you don't look past that, then you don't have enough driving you. If money is the only thing driving you, I think that you don't have the right tools to continue to be able to brush off those negative experiences and keep grinding.
absolutely. So your first this first phase, you're launching, you're making mistakes, you're getting things moving. Is there anything you would do differently? Any advice you'd give to somebody in that phase? Any tips, what not to do?
Um, No, I think that you sometimes have to learn by mistakes. I mean, there's no way that you can know everything. And from me not being a business guy, I knew nothing about business. I knew the slightest bit of, I had no knowledge base on marketing and advertising and running a staff and payroll and taxes and all these things that I had to learn about. But again, if you continue to think and think and think and think, you're a thinker, you're not a doer. And eventually I think there gets to a point to where you can't think of everything, you just have to jump. And again, it goes back to that same point of jump and don't sink. And so would I do anything different? I don't think so. I mean, I think that even like I said, even if it was something that I messed up on, it gave me experience knowing that I wasn't going to do that again. So could there have been things that could have been done better? Yes, of
I
course.
agree.
Of course, I didn't know a lot of things that I could have done better now that I look back. But I think hindsight's always going to be 2020.
Yeah,
But I think that negative situations or experiences are just as vital as positive, because then you can learn from them and learn not, to do that again, obviously.
yeah. I would say I've learned most, from either
I think we
mistakes or
all I think we'd
hardships,
all
right?
want to learn from somebody
Um,
else's mistakes, but
so
hey,
yeah,
sometimes
I
you have
would
to
hundred
experience it
percent.
in order to
Yeah,
grow and make a reasonable evaluation from that point forward. Some people just have to experience it personally before you can get overcome it.
I agree. And along with that, I got a really good piece of advice from a mentor many years ago. They said you don't have enough time to make all the mistakes yourself, so you have to learn from other people's mistakes. I've always, I mean, that I think of that like probably daily. Like, I don't have, I got to figure out what that guy did and what this lady did, but that's where you do need a network. And something that I've always just done without hesitation. I don't mind picking up the phone to just call someone, and that might be somebody I'm hiring. It might be a friend. It might be, I've called competitors. I've had competitors call me and we become friends, because you need help. You need people to talk to. It could be simple. Who do you use for payroll? Like, hey, how did you get your HIPAA compliance in order? I mean, little question, and someone can tell you, oh, I know this guy. He's really good. He's smart. And that right there, so you don't always need to feel like you got to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's okay to ask for help. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing it.
I agree 100%. And again, I say this across the board, whether it be medicine, whether it be banking, whether it be roofing, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And the bigger your networking circle is, the better. Because again, if you have somebody that's at the end
Yeah,
of the
for sure.
phone that can answer a question without you having to learn from a mistake or dedicate so much time that it now becomes a debt to you, I mean, that's the easiest way because they've already troubleshooted it. So I think that expanding the network and being able to reach out is a huge factor. And I think that if someone feels that that's a bad thing to do, to have to call and ask for help, then they're already backing up. I mean, you can't be that prideful to where you say, "Hey, man, I'm stuck, man. Please help me. Tell me what I need to do. I know
Yeah.
you've already been there, done that. I appreciate, whatever advice you can give me." And I think that's a crucial element to uh, be able to reach out. And especially in the medicinal field, we have to intermingle, about continuity of care between, myself and, say, if, I see a patient that has cardiac
Oh yeah.
diseases, I got to be able to maintain these relationships with physicians and other specialties. So, of course, over my years, I got a big network, and I'm able to pretty much reach out to anybody that I need to. I got their cell phones personally, and it's a huge component, and it's helped me a ton. And I also feel the same way. If someone calls me personally, you have my number, and you need to be seen, you need help, you need something immediately, then of course I'm going to get you right in. It all circles back to who you know, not what you know. I mean, you can go sit in the ER for 6 hours for a thing that I can fix in 6 minutes. So again, it's all about who you can call and how big your network is to really be able to help your business thrive.
Another tip I'll throw out there. Um, I've been in the healthcare space since 2011 now, and I've seen it from all directions, and I've done it myself. Is calling up other practice
It's huge.
administrators or calling physicians and asking if I can come spend time with them.
They're receptive.
And it
They're
was
receptive.
surprisingly, everyone was like, yeah, absolutely, no problem, totally receptive, totally
Oh, well,
helpful, totally didn't need to do it, but no one ever said no. And that just shows you how much people are willing to help because they probably know where you've been, and they will. And you know, cool thing also I've learned is when you ask for help and you ask somebody to mentor, if
yeah.
you have to be good at taking the advice. Like, don't ask someone for help and then just blow it off.
Yes.
Make sure you ask the right person for help, because it's not respectful if you ask them for help and then you don't do it what they say. But then coming back and reporting back to them, letting them know how their help helped you, and I found that they will continue to be invested in your success because now they're kind of part of it. They told you this thing and you did it. So if you
Yeah.
understand that, I think most of us actually are receptive to help, and I would advise anyone to put that guard down and feel okay about not just
Of
asking for
course.
help, but saying, put yourself out there. Maybe can I come visit your clinic? I mean, you choose what you need, and people, I would be shocked if in most cases people are not like, yeah, I'll help you.
It goes back to the support group. They've already been there, done that. They've experienced that, and I think that they feel like if they can pass that knowledge on or give you,
Yeah,
put you in an experience that you're gonna benefit from. Of course, I don't see why someone would not want to help contribute to your success. Competition is competition, but there's also friendly competition. That's what drives people, but it shouldn't be
yeah,
ultimately it's to help somebody. Again, even in our field, it's like, why would I be upset that someone chose a different provider
yeah,
over me? No, because the ultimate factor is to help that person, whether it be myself or somebody else. So I think that when you reach out to somebody, and I think it almost kind of gives them a little bit of like a pat on the back too. It's like, hey, Airto needed me. It's like, hey, I knew something that he didn't know, and then maybe I can help him. And of course, what it does is it opens up a
yeah,
relationship, though, a rapport that
yeah.
if somewhere
Indeed,
down the line, if that happens to flip flop, then you're going to be receptive because it's already been done for you. So I think it goes both ways.
absolutely. All right, so now you're launched, you're stabilizing, you're in the second phase where you're starting to maybe feel a little
Yeah.
calmer, if that's the right way to put it. Let's talk about, when did these things start to level out? When did you start to feel like you're entering a new phase of your business?
Yeah, that was it obviously didn't happen one day. I mean, it was an accrued thing. It was something that once I found out that I was not
Right.
having as many mistakes come up, where I'm like, oh wow, my systems are actually really working. There's some automations. I have
Yeah.
staff that I can rely on, where I didn't necessarily feel that I had to oversee 100% of everything. And I think that that's kind of another thing that you have to overcome from an entrepreneurial standpoint. You have so much invested that you almost don't want to give any responsibility to someone else. And I think that was a big thing, was finally recognizing the fact that we had implemented the right systems. We have good feedback. We're getting positive results. And I'm starting to see this kind of almost clockwork happen, to where now I can hire more people because I'm expanding. I start to be able to divvy out some of those responsibilities. So it's almost kind of taken a little bit of weight off of my shoulders finally. And I think that's kind of where you ultimately find where, wow, this is working. I'm not having to work 78 hours a week, because now I feel like I'm starting to make some headway here. I'm not in the red. I'm starting to get some profit. I have staff that's helping me. They're reliable. They're coming in. They're making good money. And I think it just kind of happens. I don't think you wake up one day and realize that it's working. You finally just really start to being able to notice a little bit of stress kind of off the back, I think. And that's when I noticed it, to where I was able to, start to focus more
Yeah.
on systems, where I wasn't having to be so involved on the day to day. And I still am. But again, there was someone told me one day, another guy that I had consulted with, he said, you'll know when you get to a point when you say, do you want to work in your business or do you want to work on your business? And that kind of made me step back and say, well, yeah, maybe it's time for me to hire another
Right.
provider to allow me to really focus on the business aspect. and dialing in systems, making it more efficient, making sure that, profit and loss is where it is, making sure my advertising can start to really pick up and ramp that up. And that's really, I think, right along the lines of when, you and your team really came in and helped me develop my website. I mean, my website sucked. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but it was not good. All right. Partially because I built it, and it took me probably, I don't know, probably the same amount of time it took me, probably 6 months, that you guys probably did in 6 days, because again, I'm trying to build stuff that I had no knowledge in. So I really pieced together a web page that was not very good, not informative enough, because I didn't know all that. I didn't know these keywords and how to get this thing to relate back to Google and SEO. And that's really where you get to a point where now you're financially stable enough to start being able to spend more money on marketing. And that was a huge tool for me. And that's kind of where we started, where you guys come in and completely revamp my webpage. I got into the Google SEO, and started to learn how to optimize my business from the backside, to learning how to further engage people on the internet side and social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think what you have done, you had a good idea actually of what you were or needed to be. We had to work on your
Mm-hmm.
brand. If you remember, our first conversation was, you're scattered. Like, your idea wasn't bad, but you needed to understand how that would play out in the market. And we identified that trying to separate them actually posed,
Mm-hmm.
like, so having men's brand versus the women's brand, it put you in a position where you might have two budgets versus, could we have one budget and consolidate this and let the traffic, and the traffic begets traffic and all these things. So yeah, we were able to help you really understand, because you knew where you needed to go. Your instincts were very good, and generally that's the case. We seldom run into someone just like has no idea what kind of patients they want. No, but that is when you start working on the business, and you say, hey, it just happens when you kind of realize you're there. For me, there was a moment when my wife had just booked a vacation to Belize. And that was like, I wouldn't even thought
Are
of
we in
it.
a
And I
position
was
to
like,
do
can we do that?
that?
She's like, yeah, we're there. I was like, and I started, yeah. Oh, I mean, I was shocked. I was like, a vacation? Like, really? So, um, but I digress, but back to where you were at, when we met, you were, I met you at that point where your head was more clear probably what, 6 months earlier. So you were ready in that phase. And that's when we connected, and you said,
Yeah.
okay, I've got some steam here, momentum. I got a vision. I know what it is. You seem to have a good sense of your staff. We talked about, where your people are at, how you make sure to maintain a good team. So we did a pretty thorough audit on, where, like, what are you good at? What are you doing well? And where
Yeah.
can we be useful to you? And it's a blast working with you, because you're a very positive, upbeat person, which I love. But you also, know how to get the best out of us, which, sometimes is a challenge. And I wanted to ask you about that, because you do have an extremely good way with people, and the people who work for you. And I think everyone I've encountered, they just really like working for you. Tell me about that as part of your success, because I think it is a big part.
I think that was something that I've just developed over years in medicine too. It's just being able to build rapport with patients and not talk down to them. I think that's a problem in medicine, to where if you use a bunch of big words, no one understands what you're talking about. If you have to be able to break it down in order for someone to be able to understand where you're coming from. And I always said, if you understand your treatment process, it just makes it that much easier. There's no confusion. You don't need to clarify a lot of things. All you have to do is just break it down to a
Okay,
point where
totally.
everybody can understand you. So I think being able to communicate and understand that the people that we deal with are not the same, not because they're not educated, but they don't know, they're seeking help. So I think being able to pick up on that, understand that, patients need help, and my staff, I try to also give them an approach that they're just as important. I can't function without them. And I think that once your staff understands how important they are and how vital they are to making the process work, I think it just makes them feel good. They like their work. I mean, you empower them some. You pay them well. Make sure that whenever they want to take a break, if they want they want a vacation, sure, we'll work around it. It sucks that you have to leave because again, you're good at what you do, but we'll make it work. And I think I'm pretty good at doing that and just really
Yeah.
allowing them
Right.
to uh, be open to suggestions. And I try to bring my staff in and say, hey, I'm not here all the time like I used to be. Tell me, are you noticing anything that we need to change? And I'm just as receptive to that because, again, I'm like, hey, I'm relying on you guys, so I try to empower them. And I think it goes back even to when I worked in the hospital. I was on every floor, big hospital, and of course, I would know people from, the top dog physicians to the CEO all the way down to the janitor and the people in the cafeteria. I mean, they recognized me. I approached them. I talked to them, and it was funny. Even though I had left the hospital a couple years back, I went and I had to make a visit to the hospital. My mother was in there, and I went to go grab something to eat, and the lunch lady recognized me, and of course she comes around, and it had been a couple years since I've been there, and she gave me a hug, and she's an older lady, and I think it was just the ability to be able to recognize people and make them feel that their job is important, and again, it works all the way down from the top to the bottom. So I think that implementing that same process in my clinic has helped. And I got a great staff, and I don't think that I would be able to have been where I am now had I not found the right people.
What I'll add to that, we deal with a lot of clinics with different scenarios. The challenges are often the same. Staffing in healthcare can be very complicated, and some organizations do a better job than others. And something I'll compliment you on is that you have attracted people that they're talented, they're good at what they do. I'm sure that's in line with salaries and stuff that you're paying. You understand that you have to invest in that. And then furthermore, I think you've done a good job at capturing a team that share your values and
It's
believe in the
awesome.
mission. So you guys are all in the same bus. You're going the same direction. Um, that is one of the most important things to success. It's something that we strive for with our team. But the same thing, and you can tell when you bring somebody in who is talented and smart, and you let them, have as much say over their life as possible, as opposed to feeling, restricted or micromanaged or anything negative to that end. You will feel the impact in your organization in a beautiful way. Like you feel like and then you learn, if you're good at this, you also learn like, wait, I'm not going to do this, and that. I got people I'm paying for that. I
Yeah.
don't have to. They may not do it perfectly the way I would, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. And if they ultimately get to the end result that I want, and it keeps in the company's values, that's a win, even if it's different than I wanted it to be done.
It's huge. Yeah, no, one of the words that you used was micromanage, and I don't like to try to micromanage is because then you take that autonomy away from that person.
Okay.
I don't want to have to do all that. I want to have my position. It's funny, your guy John, I talked to him earlier. We were on the phone. We had a meeting, and that was one thing I said to him. I said, John, I said, man,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I'm a waste of your time because you ask me questions that I don't know. It's like, I don't want to know these things. I don't know some of the answers to give you. I said, man, I have staff that are better oriented in that. I said, even though, I may be, the guy, the whatever you want to call it, the business owner, CEO, I don't know everything, and I don't need to know everything because I have people in place that do know that. So it's kind of like where you can step back a little bit and not feel that you have to be having your hands into everything. And I think it allows that staff or that crew or clinic or whatever it is to be operate independently and have a little autonomy to where they don't feel like the boss is hounding over them, because I don't like that. I think you kind of leave that organization because you have upper admin that want to feel like they have to be involved in everything, and they never fully trust that you know what you're doing. And I think that that's a big problem in smaller clinics, all the way
Yeah.
up to big companies. I think that if you have poor upper management, it just trickles down, and you're not going to be able to retain staff. And I think I've done pretty good at finding some of those key elements now, and that's helped me be successful, not just from my decisions in business or as a provider, but being able to find the staff to support that.
Look, I will say this advice would apply to any business, right? We see this so often. Um, Someone will complain, well, I've got a bad team. I can't trust them with anything. It's probably true at that point, but they need to look back. It all starts at the top. It started when you decided who you were going to hire and what their job was. And it started from there, it continued, and whether or not you had an onboarding that made sense and defined what is needed for that person to succeed. And truly, when you come into a chaotic environment, it's easy to just say, here, go do this thing, we need your help. And then nothing ever really happens formally for training. You just start trying to survive. And then as a leader, when you come up, take a breath and try to assess what's going on, you feel like it's chaos and my team's terrible. You can't skip any of those steps. From the point of what help do I need? Is it well-defined? What am I supposed to pay for that help? Is the person I bring in qualified? But beyond qualified, are they a good fit for the culture? And do they share our vision? And then when we onboard them, I've got to give them an extraordinary amount of time and attention as much as I can and micromanage them for 90 days. Because after 90 days, then I need them to be autonomous. So I look at it as every hour I give, I should get 20 back, and then exponentially beyond that. And if you take that approach, and that whether you define it the way I just said it, and the time I've spent with you, I've seen that's what you do with people is give them that. Because I've heard you say several times, you take the onus on yourself. You take your responsibility as a leader, and you need to do this, you need to do that, and it's seldom that you're pointing the finger the other direction. I think that's where a lot of leaders have a hard time, is they feel mad and angry and frustrated at their staff and don't realize first you got to look at yourself. Did I do everything I'm supposed to? And even if they're a bad hire, that's still on me. I hired them. That's hard.
Yeah. I've been there. I've been the one that's caught the finger, and I've never been the one to say, look, man, whether you call it, a bro, or you call it, just looking out for your friend, or you just feel like, the classic get thrown under the bus. But it's like, man, I would never do that. I mean, I'm just going to say, if someone messed up, I messed up, it's like I'm included in that. I'm never going to point my finger and say, yeah, my medical assistant screwed up. She shouldn't have did that, or she forgot to do that. I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, we missed it. I missed it. Or, I'm always going to kind of be the guy to be able to take responsibility, because I think that people pick up on that. They're going to say, oh, well, they may be upset, but as soon as you recognize that you did, and that's all they want, they just want the recognition. All I wanted you to do was say that you knew you messed up and say sorry. I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, that was our fault. If we did it and there was something that went wrong, of course it was our fault. And I'll be the first one to say, yeah, I apologize. Let's do what we need to do to make it better and move on, So that's one thing that I've always said, supporting my clinic and my staff. If someone's getting berated by somebody, I'm like, hey, that's not, I'm not going to let anyone of the staff, I'm going to be protected. I'm the quarterback, I'm going to protect them. That's what makes the a leader. It's like, I don't ever see, whoever, I don't even know who to even use. I mean, I mean, you think about it, it's like from a leader standpoint, like you said, it starts at the top. Whether you have a poor apple, you chose to hire that poor apple, and you've infiltrated someone that wasn't fit, or the culture, like you said, is huge. I mean, if you bring in someone that doesn't jive with the rest of their team, it's like bringing in a virus. I mean, it's just going to spread.
You have to take that responsibility, have the right structure, bring them in. I don't care if you're a small company, big company, there's a process that works. Now, I think we're pretty good at recruiting, hiring, and managing, right? But even we run into those challenges like anyone else. The other side now is you have to be able to quickly identify an underperformer, right? And understand, is it a skill issue? Is it a will issue? I mean, if somebody's will isn't there, I can't help them a whole lot. If it's skill, we can help, right? But then if they aren't, you have to be quick to identify problems, and you have to be comfortable first being really blunt and direct about problems, right? Because if you don't let someone know what the problem is and how they need to fix it, it's not fair to them. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, and they wait till it's boiled over. So earlier on, I'm sure anyone on my team will tell you I'm pretty
Sure.
direct about things. I don't mind just saying this is what it is, and that includes I'll point the finger at myself, say this is my fault. I screwed this up. I got to fix it. I just want first someone to acknowledge and take accountability. Secondly, what's the path forward? And if someone's really not able to fix these issues that they're having that are causing problems to their team, it's okay to move on, and just say, look, we want you to be happy. I mean, this is not the best spot for you. It's not a reflection of anything other than this is just not a good fit. And you have to have that mentality and be okay with it. And and that's where you start to, I think, build and nurture a team that's going to make your life easier. It's going to let you have more freedom, let you focus things you want, and they'll take care of you. And that's the ultimate goal.
I think that was one of the bigger things, like you had mentioned, was culture. I mean, if you have the right people that jive, I mean, they will work great to one another. But as soon as you bring in someone that has a negative attitude, that doesn't want to learn, that's not a skill thing. I mean, like you said, you can teach anybody, I feel like, to do anything, if they're willing, if they have at least, an IQ higher than 60. It's like you can train somebody to do what you need to do, but if they don't have the willpower to be better, then they're not going to work. I mean, and then what they do is
Yeah.
they just bring a negative vibe to the rest of the team. Then you create animosity, and it goes bad from there. So I think that's huge, is just being able to facilitate and nurture, good relationships within the clinic or whatever team you have. And I think that it's all part of the goal, as to be successful as a unit and not as an individual.
Look, there is a lot of toxicity in healthcare, right? There is, and it stems from, I think, the degrees and the hierarchies and all the
Hmm.
things that people feel ranked and placed, um and what happens is that trickles down. So I've been in a lot of clinics of different types around the country, and I've seen every version of it, and some of it is, so you'll see the same chaos in like 20 different clinics, and you'll see others that have
It's
almost the
crazy.
same makeup, but they don't have any of that chaos, right? And a lot of times it's always starts at the top, where the decision makers, the owners, the guys who can hire and fire, they have to first look at themselves and realize, like, what do I expect here? And you have to be willing to hold yourself accountable, and you have to be willing to realize, look, if I've got like staff about to kill each other half the time, there's a strong chance that I'm to blame for this, right? Probably 100% chance.
Yeah, either your turnover rate is like this, or like you said, your staff is just almost turned on each other.
Yeah,
It comes from the higher up. I mean, if you don't have a good
yeah,
structure, and you can't nip that before it
yeah.
becomes a problem,
It
then yeah,
does.
you're gonna implode.
I mean, that our practice assessment process really is about helping the leadership understand what's going wrong. In one of my favorite accounts, we had a dear client say
Nice.
like, this even helped them in their marriage. They had made a nice comment about it helped them realize how they're perceived. And that it changed the dynamic with the administrator, with the partners, everything in a very good way. And I thought I was so flattered by that, that somebody felt like that insight it made an impact professionally and personally.
Good.
Because that individual is a great doctor and good business owner, and everything was solid. This piece was missing, and stuff that had been perceived as normal, probably from other institutions, other places that they'd existed. They didn't recognize that those were symptoms of some problems that they weren't aware of, and that's what we helped them uncover. So I guess
And then you overlook. Yeah, you end up overlooking them because they become a norm, and then you don't really realize that it's a problem. I mean that, and again, even when I reference, me as a quarterback,
that's
I
what, yeah,
think about,
exactly. Yep,
you
yep,
watch, Tom
exactly.
Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. If he was in an interview, it was never the lineman's fault. It was never the one. It was never anyone else's fault. He always took the blame, and that was a good leader. I mean, as a leader, I feel like if you got to be able to take the good and the bad. Even if it's your fault, you just got to be able to kind of take the blunt of it, and be able to be able to roll forward. And I think that it's a respect thing, because then you say, well, your team's going to say, oh man, he didn't leave me out there. He didn't throw me under the bus, or he's got my back. And I think it's important.
Well, I in this phase, I think I love this topic, and again, it's one of the things I compliment you so highly with that from the day we met. I thought you have a very good vision of the fact of what it means to be part of a team and lead the team, and to get the best out of others. So I think that phase that we talked that second phase where things got easier. I'm going to say that's like the absolute core of it is your understanding of building a good team, trusting them, letting them do their thing, and fostering a culture of trust and respect. And then within that, by the way, what the great part of that is when you create that, people self-govern. They take care of themselves. They take care of each other. About making sure we're all pulling weight, we're all doing the same thing. So I think you nailed that. I think you've done a good job.
I appreciate that. It's huge. I mean, because again, I make a lot of my patients I build rapport with.
Yep.
They would probably consider me a friend. Of course that I see everybody whenever I'm out and about in town, but I would also hear the
Right.
bads. And when I knew that I had, in a job that was hard to keep full and be really good at was a receptionist because it's not. I don't want to say it's not educational, but it has to be about being a people person and being able to handle situations correctly and be able to smile and it's patient, it's customer service. And that was one thing that I would always hear about. I early on I had to kind of flip through some receptionists there for a while, and it would never fail if I ran across somebody at the store or if I ran across somebody anywhere I was at. It's like, man, your receptionist is, not good. They're just, I mean, I would hear that, they just don't have a good attitude or they don't smile whenever we come in. And that was one thing that, I had to pick up on. And even when we first started, whenever we were doing our employee, I don't remember what you guys call it, the management assessment. And I remember telling John, I'm like, man, I have a new receptionist because I flipped through them a couple times, and it was something that once I found that person that's here with me now, and again, she just got back from maternity leave, and I said, look, take your time, your job is safe. And that was one thing that she was like, I appreciate it so much. She just came back this past week and just picked right back up, and it was just so vital. I mean, that was one thing she was super appreciative of is I thank you, thank you for keeping my job. I didn't expect you to do that. I wasn't anticipating you to do that, but and I told her, I was like, no, once you find that core element, that person, that piece, it just fits and it jives. You gotta hold on to it. You gotta nurture it.
Um, like and something again. I love highlighting the team building part of it. Um, we do this a lot. We have different roles in our company, like you will, right? And healthcare is an interesting one because you have some of the highest paid people,
Not,
the most
yeah,
educated people working along people that aren't they're not as educated sometimes, and they don't make the same money, um, right? So I think it's showing understanding and empathy towards those roles. Like, look, being a new mom, coming
tough.
back to work is emotionally trying. I mean, that's hard to have to come back. And if you can exhibit that, look, it's business. I got to take care of business. It's a human being, so we do what we can. And I know when the practice that I ran was, we had a whole protocol, understanding that with a lot of female employees, we knew that there were going to be
Yeah,
people taking time off for family, and we had a plan for it. And it's very impactful. It's not like it's not hard. It's not like, but you had to just recognize that this is what goes on in people's lives. This is what they, and if you take care of them that way, by the way, you are building such deep loyalty. When you do what you can, I mean, there's limitations, of course, but anyway, I like that. I like that you how you handle that with that individual. Again, I think you're
it
building
was
a
huge. It was huge. It was a curveball. It was a curveball because she wasn't expecting. She kind of like,
yep.
sorry, I got to tell you something. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
goodness, whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, I just come back.
Yeah.
I mean, we want you, we need you back,
Yeah.
so it's secure. So again, like you said, I think it's a trust. It's
Right.
a being able to understand that they play just as vital as a role as anybody else in any level. And I think that that's good. Establishing, with a kid, I got a 12-year-old boy. It's like, I'm bro, but if like, hey, I need to square you up, you pick up on the difference. It's like if I'm in the office and things are going great, we can talk amongst, kind of freely. But if things need to be addressed, then I think everybody, knows how to separate when it's time to, you know, be serious and when it's not, and I think I was able to establish that pretty good. And I got a good team. I mean, that's all I can say. It's just a great team, and it just makes my life so much easier because it allowed me to be able to step back and focus on those systems like we talked about, and even the expansion, which I think is something that we're going to talk about as well, leading me into my next, my next big venture. So that was one crucial element that was uh, had to
Okay.
be perfect in order for me to accommodate that next step.
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, so now that second phase is so important. Now you're getting this next part where you have you can have some fun, right? You can dream what's next. You have some stability. So tell me about this next phase you've entered, and we're kind of in the thick of it now, aren't we? Like that's
Yeah, yeah,
what we're
no.
doing. Yeah.
The next phase was and kind of what we talked about earlier. Once you recognize that you have been able to build a foundation, we're profitable, I got good staff, I got people I can rely on. Now it's now what? It's kind of like I feel like if anyone, it's almost like a blessing and a curse. When you jump in the entrepreneurial phase, you get wrapped up in it to where you almost can't get out of it. And even when I'm sitting around for more than 5 minutes, I'm kind of like, why? Why do I not have anything to
Yeah.
do right now? It's been drilled into my brain for so long. It's funny. I seen this little image that caught my attention a couple days ago. It was a
Okay.
guy that he was sitting at his desk, and you know papers piled up, they're piled up all over his office desk, and he's kind of got them little bubbles, thinking like it shows him on the beach. He's on vacation. But the next image was him on the beach dreaming about work, and that's kind of what happens. It's like, even though you want a vacation, it's hard for me to shut that down. So when I got to a point of saying, wow, we're doing good, I got good staff, I'm cranking, what's next was, well, I only have my brick and mortar here that is only expanding so far, on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. But I know it's such a vital piece of an element that is on a bigger scale. I wanted to scale it. And that's kind of what started my journey into developing my telehealth business. Was the same things that I recognized here was not a local problem, it's a systemic problem. And I feel like it's from a hormonal standpoint and optimization of health is a nationwide problem. So I started delving into how I can branch and almost duplicate my structure that I had here as a brick and mortar, and modify it and make it a telehealth business. And I think COVID was not a great scenario, but what it did was it opened up the eyes to businesses being able to function outside the office. And it really opened up telehealth, and that's something that you were already doing, I guess. I don't know if you
Absolutely.
guys were already on that kind of structure, but from a medicine standpoint, it opened up the gates of being able to practice and treat
Yeah.
patients without having to be hands on, to where I don't necessarily have to do an examination. In orthopedics, you have to, there's no way you could do a virtual orthopedic exam, you just can't do it. But in my element, to where it's a lot of hormonal and
Right.
a lot of subjective data and labs, I
Right.
didn't necessarily have to be in front of the person. I could be just like you and I right now, where you may be in Texas, I'm in Mississippi, but I can still treat you. So that's what allowed me to start to develop my next phase, which was my telehealth business. And going back to the financial thing that we talked about, the first element was there would have been no way that I could start that without having a structure already generating revenue, because this thing didn't happen overnight. I mean, this was a 12-16 month process that I had to pay people that was not generating money. I mean, it was essentially leeching off of a successful business that I had already started. So um
Man.
it made me appreciate the fact that, man,
Right.
people do this. How do they do it? Either they're back in step one to where they have to borrow money, or they have to sell their possessions or whatever they do, or they've already done a successful entrepreneurial business that is now funding their next avenue. So I was lucky in the sense that mine did fairly well in the first couple years, and it allowed me to start being able to deviate off and start my next venture. It was something that I wanted to really be able to offer my services outside of my area, and that was the best means. And of course, when we talk about having to try to generate something like that, a lot of the systems and IT stuff I was oblivious to. I didn't know the first step. So again, that was another thing that I had to almost start encountering as a whole nother avenue of variables that I didn't know about outside of marketing and advertising, was how to get these systems to all communicate. And I learned all these cool words about integrations and automations and all these things that even your team has helped a lot with. It's just been a whole nother avenue that has been allowable because of what I was already able to do with my brick and mortar.
So telehealth is a popular topic in a lot of healthcare, specialties. So I'm going to say a couple things more broadly, but I'd love to have you kind of weigh in on how that pertains to your situation. But also, one thing I've learned about you is you don't like to cut corners. You want to do things the right way, because you know that cutting
Yeah.
corners and not having the right foundation is just going to be a problem later. With that, I like how you built your brick and mortar. You did the work, and you didn't make this other jump too soon. And I say that because we have these conversations actually a lot where folks have this dream, this vision, they want to do this thing, and I want that for them, but they're doing it the wrong way sometimes. They don't have the finance or the
Right.
thing that's making the money. They just want to kill it without notice, versus going, that's works, that makes money, I need to protect that, and then I can fund this and try to make this work. And if it does, that's all the better. But if it doesn't, I can't forget about the thing that got me here. So tell me a little bit, doing the things that you don't want to do, the things you don't like doing, that you probably still have to do day in, day out, or how you pay somebody to do it. Because if you cut that part out, it's very dangerous.
You can't. I mean, you can't. I almost had to spend more money because I had to get people that were already specialized in that area that I have nothing about. I mean, that's the whole point. You pay somebody to do something that you don't know. I mean, I don't know how to do IT stuff like you. I don't know how to do, marketing and automations and software developing and all these things. So you end up having to pay somebody to help facilitate that. So that was my next venture, was not only making those connections to get the appropriate people in place, but again, it all comes back to financial. I had to be financially able to fund that next thing, because again, when you go from a brick and mortar as a footprint, remember my brick and mortar, I grew up here. I knew a ton of people. I had already been established here. Now try to mention my name in Colorado. Nobody knows who I am. I'm a nobody there, so it's hard to
Yeah,
not only take this
right.
idea and be able to brand it and market it in an area that I have no footprint in. So that is where I am now, and I'm starting to, get into more, and of course, that we're working together on that, but it's trying to be able to take a message, take an idea, take a service, and bring it to an area that nobody knows who I am.
So two parts to that. One, what you're trying to do is enter to expand your offering, right? And
Mhm.
that's a business I'm in. I'm a national footprint. We have international clients. Um, that is hard, right? You have to figure out how to be seen and be viable in places well beyond your geographic reach, well beyond your immediate sphere of influence. And that is where you have utilized help for that, because
Exactly.
it isn't as simple as just hanging, your open sign. But the other thing you've done is you've stayed diligent about making sure the thing that got you here, that you're continuing to do the work and invest that. And I say this more for the viewers, because this is a popular topic. We get a lot about, how can we branch out into or transform into telehealth. Some folks are only telehealth. It's a climb. It's not as simple as just turning on a website and deciding that I want to do this. You have to be realistic about can I do it with insurance or without insurance? Can I do it in this format or that format? Do I have a brick and mortar that's working for me now? And can I kill that or not? I mean, so I say this just trying to be helpful to others who might be watching and your experience. The thing you've done very well is you're disciplined and you stick to the things that you have to do, and with the vision of getting more of the things that you want to do. So that's again another comment to you. Something I like that you've done, and a tip to others that want to replicate what you're doing. Like don't discount the daily grind and the continual grind. So yeah,
You can't because I mean if you start sacrificing what's feeding you, I mean now you've almost taken your full attention away from it and that starts degrading. So I don't
yeah,
necessarily have to be in my office near as much as what I used to, but I'm there every day. I don't have to be, but you have to be. It's like you have to still show that your presence is there,
yeah. I
that the
know.
structure is still there, that everything that needs to be addressed is not put on the back burner. So I'm always very responsive. I don't go anywhere without my iPad. I mean, I just, I, it makes it so accessible now. You don't really have a reason not to be accessible, other than the fact that you just don't want to be accessible. And that's not in the industry that we are. I mean, in the industry that I'm in, it's like you have to be accessible. I mean, in order to
Yeah,
build, in
yeah.
order to
No,
expand, I have to rely on people, my IT guys in the Philippines, so he's 13 hours ahead. So I'm on Zoom calls at, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes. And that's what people don't get. They don't see what happens on the back end. It's like they don't know the hours you put in it. It's like there are some sacrifice.
the hours.
There's a huge sacrifice.
Now, and that look that hour investment is hard, and eventually you're going to just pay somebody to do it for you when that time is right, but that the hours don't go away, right? That's really the only
No,
the
exactly.
only time it's going to get less is you can outsource it or pay someone in your team. But the time, that's a big problem for a lot of healthcare providers, and understandably. I mean, they're running clinic, it's exhausting. Now they got to do the business stuff too. And um so there's some folks that are very good at this, and then they learn what they can handle, they learn what to delegate as soon as possible. And there's some folks that are not great at this, and they cut some corners, and the time investment isn't there, maybe because they can't or don't want to or don't know what they should be doing. I mean, that's very important that you understand, like, you're continually investing those hours. There really is no shortcut. So it's good that you share that experience. That, yeah, listen, I'm doing more stuff I enjoy, but it's still a grind. I'm still putting the time in.
It is. It's funny. Like I mentioned earlier, I got a 12-year-old, and it'll be a Saturday, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm on the iPad. He's like, "Daddy, it's the weekend." It's like, "Hey, bro, when you own a business, man, you're never off." And that's kind of what you have to get in the mind frame of even my vacations. I still plan
Yeah,
on bringing my iPad because I'm gonna do what I got to do, even though because I can't shut it off. And if it's on my mind, I can't let it go until it's done. And again, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse to where I tell people I don't do anything special. I'm not special. I mean, we don't do anything I don't think anyone else can't do physically. I mean, if you don't have a disability, the only thing that is disabling you is this. If you don't have a physical disability, the only thing that's disabling you is a mental
yeah.
component. And again, I don't think that what I've done is nothing special other than the fact that I just did it. There is no such thing. When I did it, I wasn't going to not be able to succeed. And I think that's just a mental thing. But again, it's almost kind of like a snowball. Once it starts rolling, it's hard to make it stop. So it is a little blessing and a curse.
All right. Well, and I will round this off with, you've explained very well where we're at in this new phase, and there's still a lot of newness to it. You are going to be doing a lot, and there's a lot to gain. What I predict, and I remember I had told my brother years back when we started, I said, look, I'll probably be able to start to rest a little around 5 years. And I forgot I said that, but around the 5 year mark, I was taking a couple extra trips, and I had stuff hired out, and things started to run more independently, where I didn't have to stress out about every detail. And I don't know, and if your model, if it's at the 5-year mark or what it was, but my brother's like, oh yeah, it's been 5 years. You said you'd be able to relax in 5 years. So I do think that rest does come. It has to at some point. You won't be able to do that forever. And to build a sustainable brand and
Mhm.
organization will need, it needs to run independent of you at some point, right? But you're still in this phase where you're very much building this thing. But the other thing is running somewhat independent of you, right? So now you're going to build this extension of it. That is
Yeah.
the life cycle. I
Yeah.
think it's good to understand that, because, okay, why am I doing all this? There is a point where it's like, I might actually be able to take a breath and relax here. So you're well on your way to that, I think, with the telehealth brand, and you've done very well for the brick and mortar too.
It's awesome. Yeah, no, and you pointed it out. It's like everyone has a mark, and mine is 5 years from now, not even 5 years from the opening of my brick and
Right.
mortar, because I almost look at that as my kickstart, my
Right.
jump off. That is what allowed me to really start being able to focus on something that I feel like is going to
Right.
be even bigger, to where I've generated, 1,500 patients in about 2 years. I mean, I've done very well. I'm thinking about that's in the Biloxi, Mississippi on the Gulf Coast. Imagine that times, 50 is my goal. I mean, really, it's like I feel like
Yeah.
this thing that I'm developing is something that needs to be implemented across the globe. Now, of course, I can't practice internationally, but at least nationally, I've already started. I have about 20 plus licenses, and I'm just really kind of starting the groundwork for bringing this idea to the masses. And that's my 5 year. My 5 year would ultimately to have this thing really offered across all the states, and not from a monetary standpoint. I mean, of course we all want to be successful, but I just feel like it's the next phase. I mean, if you step back and see, you know does success matter when you're unhealthy? And not really. I mean, what does the 75-year-old gazillionaire want? He wants to be healthy. He's running out of time. So the more that you can implement those things early on in life and really try to start
Yeah.
focusing on longevity, and health, the better you are. It doesn't matter how rich you are if you can't walk, if you have problem, if you have cardiac disease, if you can't even enjoy the money outside of just saying that you were successful in business, then it doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah. Well said. I'm gonna wrap this up with some the takeaways here. I think some key takeaways from your advice. I think it's very useful, and I hope uh, others gain the benefit of your advice. So let's summarize this. We're talking about, first and foremost, I'm always going to say this. I think you and I agree. Accept the reality of owning a business. It's hard. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And I think you said nicely that if the
Yeah, I mean,
reward,
anything that
how
takes
did
a
you
lot of
phrase it? The
work, the reward is
reward
going to
wasn't
be
worth it,
comparable. I
then
mean, if the rewarding was easy, I mean, it wouldn't be very rewardful. I mean,
right,
however
right,
you want to put it, it's just not going to be rewarding if it's easy. I mean, that's the whole point. The more you work
right,
at
right,
it,
yeah,
the bigger
yeah,
the
yeah.
reward.
And then sink or swim. Don't be afraid to take risks. I will tell you, I've talked about this so many times with business owners. You can't be risk averse. I mean, you have to be smart, but you got to be able to take those risks. And I will say, I've always said that I think most folks should not own a business, can't have no ability to make it happen. But those that have that ability, I think they have a high chance of success if they do what's proven to work. And thankfully, there's a lot of information out there. There's folks like Kendrick willing to share, their experience of like learn from that. And you will be taking risks, but I think you can mitigate those risks through hard work and leveraging um, information
Yeah,
from sources that are trusted. And that's the other hard part, is make sure that they're worthy sources. But ultimately, don't be afraid of that risk and just accept the fact that you're jumping in. You can't hold on to the edge. You gotta swim. You gotta make it happen. And I think you've talked about that quite a bit. And then I love when you said don't become
of
complacent,
course.
right? So I think you're still pushing yourself, even where you've had some good success and you've been doing this for a little bit now. After a nice career as an employee, now you're doing yourself. You're still hustling, and you don't get complacent, because if it works today, does not guarantee it'll work tomorrow, right?
100%. And it is funny. I even tell my boy this. I'm like, man, you know what the richest guy in the world does every day? Goes to work. I mean, he literally can't stop working. I mean, we know who the top five are, and they still work every day. Well, I say every day. I mean, of course, they take their
Yeah,
vacations, but they're not sitting on an island somewhere and never to be seen again. They may have islands, they may own them,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean that they're sitting on them all the time not working. I mean, it's a mental thing. You can't shut it down whether you're worth 100 billion or a million. It's just something that once you get to that goal, if you don't have another bigger goal, you don't have a driving element. And I think that's what kind of makes us different, is just we have a drive that is just not satiable. And that's what people that are complacent don't have. I mean, they just find mediocrity and just kind of
yeah,
just chill there, and they just sustain, and they don't have a desire to be better. So, I don't know. And I just try to bring that to an element to where I
yeah,
trying to start. I want to try to start that next level, to start the process of where I got a guy coming up behind me is going to eventually, hopefully, take over my clinics, and he's going to continue to be successful. And it's almost kind of like that generate. You want to start some generational wealth. It's almost kind of like you're setting up for the next phase. And we talked about phases. My next phase is going to be retirement and let my son take over. Of course, I think everybody's goal is to have someone under them, a dependent, child come up behind them and be successful and take the hard work that we've had to
yeah.
do and make it a little less hard on them. But it's just, I think it's a big picture is just trying to do better.
So wrap this up. We need to have resources one way or another. Can't cut corners, expect results. It's the bottom line. We know that it takes money to make money, but beyond that, you have to understand the necessary investment required to succeed. And sometimes you may not have that answer. Again, find a trusted resource that'll help you understand what you need to do there. But don't expect that you can come in halfway and get the result and beat guys like Kendrick who are going to be working around the clock and putting the money into it. It's just not going to happen, right? And then one last thing I'll add, that my biggest takeaway from this discussion, I think, is investing in your people, building the culture. Because like you said, anybody could kind of come in and do, just mechanically the services that you offer, but they can't copy is you as a person, your heart, your soul, your relationships. And that's, in our industry, we strive for
Same.
the same,
Yeah,
in the different vertical, but completely, we have the same mission. When people join our team, they sign a document. The
that's
first
awesome.
the first thing is our three values. The value statement, the three things they have to live by. So I really really love that you've built your organization on that belief, and I think you're seeing the success from it. And if you continue that, it'll serve you well. I think you're gonna do very well.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment, and of course, you and your team have been a big part of that success as well. From the system side of it. So again, it's a team element. I didn't do it by myself. I would have never been able to do it by myself. I invested in myself. I took big risk. I took sacrifice, and that's what it takes. But ultimately, it takes a team to build an empire. So I think we're all on the right track.
So we've covered a very real look into the life of a practice owner, the ups, downs, and the rest. So Kendrick, I truly appreciate your time and the fact that you're willing to share your story with others. I hope they find your insights to be helpful. And to our viewers, if you're looking for support in any way to help grow your practice, we can help you similar to how we helped Kendrick. And Kendrick, why don't you tell them a little bit about us working together?
Very much so. Again, even I mentioned it earlier, once my foundation was built, I had to look on how to expand it. And Numana has done fabulous for me in many different aspects, not only building my web page, but being able to optimize my Google SEO and practice management and automations and marketing. I mean, in every aspect. So if anyone's, questioning whether or not this is a good opportunity, and their team is huge as far as their implementation of helping me and being successful. So I give 5 stars plus 5 stars. So they've done great for me, and I appreciate everything that you've done. Airto, I appreciate the invite here, and I hope that this information helps anybody else that's looking into the industry.
All right, Kendrick, thank you so much. It was very generous of you to
Of course.
have so much time with us today. So I hope this case study was helpful to others. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you on the next one.